young single mother is sick with lung cancer. She does not have much time left on earth, and she is scared of what will happen to her daughter. But sometimes amazing things happen that you won't believe. Michelle glanced at the clock. It was almost time to pick up Emily from the elderly neighbor who babysat her while Michelle worked. Standing up, Michelle felt a sharp pain in her chest, a reminder of the news she received just a week ago. Stage 4 lung cancer. She had been smoking since she was 15, a habit that had escalated to 3 packs a day in recent years. Stupid, she thought. She knew it was a bad idea, but she never imagined the consequences would come so soon. Michelle sighed, rubbing her temples as she tried to gather her thoughts. Her reflection in the cracked mirror on the wall showed a woman in her early 30s who looked much older than her years. Her once vibrant eyes were now dulled with exhaustion and worry. She had no family to lean on. The foster system had been her only home until she aged out at 18. She had faced life alone, but the thought of Emily facing the same fate was unbearable. "Mommy," Emily's cheerful voice echoed through the apartment as the door creaked open. Michelle turned to see her 3-year-old daughter burst in, her blonde curls bouncing with each step. Behind her, Mrs. Jenkins, their elderly neighbor, shuffled in slowly. "Hey, sweetheart," Michelle forced a smile, bending down to scoop Emily into her arms despite the pain it caused. Emily's giggles were a brief respite from the dark cloud hanging over Michelle's thoughts. "Thanks, Mrs. Jenkins," Michelle said, turning to the elderly woman. "I really appreciate your help." "Oh, it's no trouble at all," Mrs. Jenkins replied, though her tired eyes told a different story. "She's a sweet girl. Just got to work on remembering her name, don't I, little Emily?" Emily giggled, and Michelle's heart ached at the thought of leaving her daughter in a world that seemed so indifferent. After saying goodbye to Mrs. Jenkins, Michelle carried Emily to the small kitchenette, setting her down on a chair. "Mommy, what's for dinner?" Emily asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. Michelle ruffled her daughter's hair. "How about some mac and cheese? Does that sound good?" Emily nodded enthusiastically, and Michelle set about preparing the simple meal. As she stirred the pot, her mind raced. The doctor's words echoed in her head. Months to live. She had to find a solution for Emily, something better than the life she had known. Later that evening, after Emily had fallen asleep, Michelle sat at the small kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She stared at the wall, thinking about her options. Her daughter's father was in prison, serving time for serious crimes. Even if he were released, he wouldn't be allowed anywhere near Emily. Her thoughts drifted to her coworker, her best friend at work. She was amazing, with a good husband and a happy family. They were black, while Michelle and Emily were as white as could be. Michelle worried about the complications and prejudices such an adoption might bring. But as she thought about the foster care system, about the life Emily might face, she knew she had to try. Michelle reached for her phone, her hands trembling. She typed out a message to her friend, asking if they could meet. She didn't include the details. Those were too painful to put into words in a text. As she hit send, she felt a mixture of hope and dread. Michelle's eyes fell on a photograph on the wall, her and Emily at the park, smiling, carefree. She had made many mistakes in her life, but Emily was her one good thing, her one success. She would do anything to give her daughter a chance at a better life. "Please," she whispered to the empty room, her voice breaking, "please let this work out." As the night wore on, Michelle lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The weight of her diagnosis pressed down on her, but her thoughts remained fixed on Emily. She thought about the conversations she would need to have, the plans she would need to make. Sleep came fitfully, punctuated by coughing fits and dreams of a future she would never see. Morning came too soon, and Michelle woke with a sense of urgency. She got Emily ready for the day, her movements slow and deliberate. Today she would go to work and try to be strong, but she knew that her real fight was just beginning. She had to find a way to ensure Emily's future, even if she wouldn't be there to see it. As she walked Emily to Mrs. Jenkins' apartment, she held her daughter's hand tightly, savoring the warmth and the connection. "I love you, Emily," she said, her voice full of emotion. Emily looked up at her, her innocent eyes full of trust. "I love you too, Mommy." Michelle forced a smile, but inside her heart was breaking. She kissed Emily's forehead and watched as she ran into Mrs. Jenkins' arms. Then, with a deep breath, she turned and walked to the bus stop, ready to face another day, ready to fight for her daughter's future. Chapter 2. A Friend's Dilemma. The cafeteria at Michelle's workplace was bustling with the usual lunchtime crowd, a mix of hurried conversations and the clatter of trays and cutlery. Michelle sat at a corner table, her lunch untouched. She fiddled with her phone, glancing at the door every few seconds. Her mind raced with what she was about to ask her coworker, her best friend Amelia. Amelia was a beacon of positivity in Michelle's life. They had met on Michelle's first day at the office, and Amelia had taken her under her wing. Amelia's infectious laugh and genuine kindness had been a lifeline for Michelle during some of her darkest days. Today, Michelle hoped Amelia's kindness could extend to the most significant favor she could ever ask. "Hey, Michelle?" Amelia's voice rang out as she approached the table, her smile brightening the room. She set her tray down and took a seat. "What's up? You look like you've got something on your mind." Michelle took a deep breath, her eyes welling up despite her efforts to remain composed. "Amelia, I need to talk to you about something really important." Amelia's expression shifted from cheerful to concerned in an instant. "Of course, what's going on? Are you okay?" "No," Michelle said, her voice cracking. "I'm not. I found out I have stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors say I only have a few months to live." Amelia's eyes widened in shock, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God, Michelle, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say." Michelle nodded, tears streaming down her face. "It's been really hard to accept, but I have to think about Emily. She's my everything, Amelia, and I can't leave her without knowing she'll be okay." Amelia reached across the table, taking Michelle's hand in hers. "What can I do to help?" "Anything you need, I'm here for you." Michelle squeezed Amelia's hand, her heart pounding in her chest. "That's why I wanted to talk to you. I know this is a lot to ask, but would you and your husband consider adopting Emily?" Amelia's eyes widened even further, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled to find words. "Michelle, that's a huge responsibility. I don't know what to say." "I know it is," Michelle said quickly, her voice desperate, "but I can't think of anyone better. You're an amazing mother, and you and David have such a loving home. Emily deserves that." Amelia sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She thought about her own children, the busy lives they led, and the commitment it would take to bring another child into their home. But she also thought about Emily, the sweet little girl who had become like a niece to her. "Michelle," Amelia began slowly, choosing her words carefully. "David and I would need to talk about this. It's a big decision, and we need to make sure we can give Emily the life she deserves." "I understand," Michelle said, her voice barely a whisper. I don't have much time, Amelia. I need to know she'll be okay." Amelia reached across the table again, her eyes full of compassion. "I promise you, we'll think about it seriously. And no matter what, we'll be there for you and Emily." "You're not alone in this," Miss Michelle nodded, feeling a small measure of relief. She had taken the first step, and now she had to hope and pray that Amelia and David would be able to help. The rest of their lunch was filled with lighter conversation, but the weight of their earlier discussion lingered in the air. That evening, Amelia sat at the kitchen table with David, her husband of 10 years. They had just put their 2 children to bed, and the house was quiet. Amelia recounted her conversation with Michelle, her voice trembling with emotion. "David, she's desperate," Amelia said, her eyes pleading. "Emily is such a sweet girl. I can't bear the thought of her going into the foster system." David listened intently, his brow furrowed in thought. He loved Amelia's big heart, her willingness to help others, but this was a monumental decision. "It's a lot to take in, Amelia. We need to think about our own kids too. Can we handle another child, especially under these circumstances?" "I know," Amelia said, her voice soft, "but we have to at least consider it. Michelle is our friend, and Emily needs us." David nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "We'll talk to the kids about it tomorrow. This affects them too, and they need to be part of the decision." The next day after school, Amelia and David sat their children down in the living room. Their son, Michael, was 8, and their daughter, Sarah, was 6. Both kids looked up at their parents with curious eyes. "Mommy and Daddy need to talk to you about something very important," Amelia began, her voice gentle. She explained Michelle's situation in terms the kids could understand, watching their faces closely for their reactions. Emily might need a new home, David added, and we're thinking about asking her to come live with us, but we want to know how you feel about it. Michael frowned, looking down at his hands. Will she be like a sister? Yes, Amelia said, her heart aching at the thought. She would be part of our family. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I like Emily. I don't want her to be sad. Amelia reached out, hugging her daughter tightly. I know, sweetheart. We all want to help her. Michael looked up, his young face filled with determination. We should help her, Mommy. She needs us. Amelia's heart swelled with pride and love for her children. She looked over at David, who nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of resolve and tenderness. Okay, David said, his voice firm. We'll do this together as a family. Amelia smiled through her tears, feeling a sense of relief and hope. They still had a long road ahead, but she knew they could face it together. That night, she called Michelle, sharing the news that they were willing to take Emily in. Michelle's sobs of gratitude echoed through the phone, filling Amelia's heart with a bittersweet mixture of joy and sorrow. They talked late into the night, making plans and discussing the future. Amelia promised Michelle that Emily would be loved and cared for, that she would have a family who cherished her. As Amelia hung up the phone, she sat in the quiet darkness of her living room, feeling the weight of the commitment they had just made. It was a huge responsibility, but it was also an act of love and compassion. And in the end, that was what mattered most. Chapter 3. A New Beginning. The day Emily moved in dawned with a bright golden sunlight filtering through the trees. Amelia and David had spent the previous evening making final preparations, ensuring everything was perfect for Emily's arrival. The spare room, now transformed into a cozy bedroom, was filled with soft, welcoming colors, a new bed adorned with fluffy pillows, and shelves stocked with books and toys. Amelia glanced around the room one last time, feeling a mixture of anxiety and hope. She wanted this transition to be as smooth as possible for Emily, understanding the immense change the little girl was about to face. David was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for their children. Michael and Sarah were unusually quiet, sensing the gravity of the day. The smell of pancakes filled the air, a comforting reminder of normalcy amid the change. Are you ready? David asked, handing Amelia a cup of coffee. Amelia took a sip, her hands trembling slightly. As ready as I can be. It's just so surreal. I can't believe it's happening. David wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. We'll get through this together, and we'll make sure Emily feels loved and safe. Just then the doorbell rang, and Amelia's heart skipped a beat. That must be them, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael and Sarah perked up, abandoning their pancakes and rushing to the door. Amelia followed, her heart pounding. She opened the door to find Michelle and Emily standing there. Michelle looked pale and frail, her illness visibly taking its toll, but her eyes shone with gratitude and love. Emily clung to her mother's hand, her eyes wide with uncertainty. She held a stuffed bunny close to her chest, a source of comfort in the face of the unknown. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Emily. Amelia greeted them warmly, bending down to Emily's level. Welcome to your new home, sweetie. Emily looked up at her mother, seeking reassurance. Michelle knelt down, hugging Emily tightly. It's okay, honey. You'll be safe here. Amelia and David are wonderful people, and they'll take good care of you. Emily nodded, her grip on her bunny tightening. She turned back to Amelia, her expression a mix of fear and curiosity. Come on in, Amelia said softly, stepping aside to let them enter. Michael and Sarah hovered nearby, unsure how to approach their new sister. Sarah, always the more outgoing of the two, stepped forward and held out a hand. Hi, Emily. Do you want to see your new room? Emily hesitated, glancing at her mother again. Michelle gave her an encouraging nod, and Emily tentatively took Sarah's hand. Amelia watched, her heart swelling with emotion as Sarah led Emily down the hall. Thank you so much, Michelle whispered, tears streaming down her face. I can't tell you how much this means to me. Amelia embraced her, tears in her own eyes. We'll take good care of her, Michelle. I promise. David stepped forward, his voice gentle. Would you like to stay for a while, Michelle? Have some breakfast with us? Michelle shook her head, wiping her tears. I should get going. It's hard enough already. But thank you. They watched as Michelle hugged Emily one last time, whispering words of love and reassurance. Then, with a final, tearful goodbye, Michelle left, leaving a piece of her heart behind. The first few days were a whirlwind of adjustment. Emily was quiet and withdrawn, clinging to her bunny and observing her new surroundings with cautious eyes. Amelia and David took turns spending time with her, gently encouraging her to join in family activities. They knew it would take time for Emily to feel comfortable, and they were patient, allowing her to set her own pace. Michael and Sarah were curious and eager to include Emily in their games. Michael, understanding the weight of the situation in his own way, was gentle and considerate, while Sarah's exuberance sometimes overwhelmed Emily. But slowly, a bond began to form between them. One afternoon, as the children played in the backyard, Amelia watched from the kitchen window. Emily was sitting on the grass watching Michael and Sarah chase each other around. Sarah suddenly stopped and ran over to Emily, holding out a flower she had picked. "Here, Emily, it's for you," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling. Emily took the flower, a shy smile tugging at her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. Amelia felt a lump in her throat witnessing this small but significant moment. She joined them outside, sitting down on the grass next to Emily. "Are you having fun?" Amelia asked, her voice gentle. Emily nodded, still holding the flower. "Yes," Amelia smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. "I'm glad. You can talk to me or David anytime you need to. We're here for you." Emily looked up at Amelia, her eyes searching. "Will Mommy come back?" Amelia's heart ached at the question. She reached out, gently stroking Emily's hair. "Your mommy loves you very much, Nat, and she wishes she could be here with you. But she's very sick, and she wants you to be safe and happy. That's why you're here with us." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, and Amelia pulled her into a comforting embrace. "It's okay to be sad, Emily. We're all here to help you. You're part of our family now, and we love you very much." Emily clung to Amelia, her small body trembling with sobs. Amelia held her close, whispering soothing words. She knew this was just the beginning of a long journey, but she also knew they would get through it together. As the weeks passed, Emily began to open up more, finding comfort in the routines and rhythms of her new home. She laughed and played with Michael and Sarah, her shy smile becoming more frequent. Amelia and David continued to provide a stable and loving environment, always mindful of Emily's emotional needs. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Emily looked up from her plate, her eyes bright. "Can I call you Mommy and Daddy?" Amelia and David exchanged a glance, their hearts swelling with emotion. Amelia reached out, taking Emily's hand in hers. "Of course you can, sweetheart. We'd love that." Emily smiled, her eyes filled with a mixture of happiness and relief. "Thank you, Mommy. Thank you, Daddy." In that moment, Amelia knew they had made the right decision. Emily was part of their family now, and together they would face whatever the future held. The journey was far from over, but with love and patience, they would find their way. Shadows of the past. The transition had been smoother than Amelia and David dared to hope. Emily was integrating into the family with increasing ease, her laughter becoming a cherished sound in their home. Yet the shadows of the past lingered, and Amelia knew they couldn't be ignored forever. One crisp autumn morning, the family gathered in the living room, where sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow on the room. Emily sat on the floor with Michael and Sarah, engrossed in a board game. Amelia watched them from the kitchen, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. David entered carrying a tray of hot cocoa, his eyes meeting Amelia's with a silent understanding. Today was the day they had planned to visit Michelle in the hospice. "Are you ready?" David asked quietly, placing a hand on Amelia's shoulder. She nodded, her thoughts heavy with the anticipation of the visit. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Mommy, Daddy, can we bring some flowers for Aunt Michelle?" Sarah piped up from the living room, her innocent request bringing a smile to Amelia's face. "Of course, sweetheart," Amelia replied. "That's a wonderful idea." David gathered the children, and together they picked a bouquet of vibrant flowers from the garden. Emily carefully selected the brightest ones, her small hands trembling slightly as she arranged them. Amelia watched her, sensing the undercurrent of emotions Emily was trying to navigate. The drive to the hospice was quiet, the children subdued, sensing the gravity of the visit. Amelia's mind raced with thoughts of Michelle, their shared memories, and the sorrow of the impending goodbye. She glanced at Emily, who stared out the window, clutching her stuffed bunny and the bouquet of flowers. When they arrived, the hospice was serene, the peaceful surroundings a stark contrast to the turmoil Amelia felt inside. They were greeted by a nurse who led them to Michelle's room. Michelle looked frailer than the last time they saw her, but her face lit up with a radiant smile when she saw them. "My loves," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with warmth. Emily hesitated at the door, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Amelia gently nudged her forward. "Go on, sweetheart. Aunt Michelle's been waiting to see you." Emily approached the bed slowly, the bouquet clutched in her hands. "Hi, Mommy," she whispered, her voice trembling. Tears filled Michelle's eyes as she reached out to touch Emily's face. "My beautiful girl," she murmured, her voice breaking. "I've missed you so much." Amelia and David stood back, giving Michelle and Emily a moment of privacy. Michael and Sarah hovered nearby, their expressions solemn. Amelia's heart ached for all of them, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on her. After a while, Michelle turned her gaze to Amelia and David. "Thank you for bringing her," she said, her voice stronger now. "I wanted to see her one last time." "We're glad we could come," David replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "She's doing well, Michelle. She's a part of our family now." Michelle's eyes filled with gratitude. "I know she's in good hands. I can see how much she's blossoming with you." Emily climbed onto the bed, curling up beside her mother. Michelle wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "You're going to be okay, Emily. You're with people who love you, and that's all that matters." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, my sweet girl," Michelle whispered, her voice filled with a bittersweet tenderness. "Always remember that." The room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the soft sound of Emily's sobs. Amelia felt her own tears falling, the pain of the moment almost unbearable. She reached for David's hand, finding strength in his steady presence. As the visit drew to a close, Michelle's strength waned. She whispered words of love and encouragement to each of them, her voice growing weaker with each passing minute. When it was time to leave, Emily clung to her mother, unwilling to let go. "Emily," Michelle whispered, her voice barely audible. "Be brave, be happy, and know that I'll always be with you." Emily nodded, her face buried in her mother's shoulder. Amelia gently pried her away, holding her close as they left the room. The walk back to the car was somber, the weight of the goodbye hanging heavily in the air. The drive home was silent, each family member lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, Emily went straight to her room, her stuffed bunny clutched tightly in her arms. Amelia followed, finding her curled up on the bed, her small body racked with sobs. Amelia sat beside her, stroking her hair. "It's okay to cry, Emily. It's okay to feel sad." Emily looked up, her eyes filled with a depth of sorrow that broke Amelia's heart. "Will Mommy go to heaven?" Amelia nodded, her own tears falling freely. "Yes, sweetie, she'll go to heaven and she'll always watch over you." Emily's sobs quieted, her breathing evening out as she fell into an exhausted sleep. Amelia stayed with her, the room filled with the quiet sounds of Emily's slumber and the lingering presence of Michelle's love. Downstairs, David and the other children were quietly playing a board game. The somber mood lightened by the familiar comfort of routine. Amelia joined them after tucking Emily in, her heart heavy but filled with a renewed sense of purpose. They would face the future together, one day at a time, their bond strengthened by love and resilience. The days that followed were a mixture of sorrow and healing. Emily's grief was a constant presence, but with the support of her new family, she began to navigate her way through it. Michael and Sarah were her constant companions, their innocent joy bringing light to the darkest moments. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Emily looked up at Amelia, her eyes filled with a quiet determination. "Mommy," she said, her voice steady, "can we go visit Mommy's grave sometime?" Amelia's heart swelled with pride and love for the brave little girl. "Of course, sweetheart, we'll go together." As a family, Emily nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. She leaned against Amelia, finding comfort in her mother's embrace. The road ahead was still filled with challenges, but together they would find their way. The shadows of the past were slowly giving way to the promise of a brighter future, one filled with love, hope, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Weeks had passed since Michelle's passing, and Amelia had settled into the rhythm of their new life. Emily's grief was gradually giving way to acceptance, her occasional quiet moments of sadness countered by bursts of laughter and play. Michael and Sarah had adjusted remarkably well, their routines and schoolwork providing a comforting structure. Amelia had been vigilant in maintaining open lines of communication with Emily. She encouraged her to express her feelings and the small rituals they had established, lighting a candle for Michelle each evening, visiting her grave and talking about her memories provided solace to them all. One crisp winter morning, as the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, Amelia gathered the children around the fireplace. David had suggested they create a new tradition to celebrate the season and the warmth of their growing family. "We're going to make our own holiday," Amelia announced, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "It'll be a special time just for us to celebrate how far we've come and the love we share." Emily's eyes lit up. "Can we decorate the tree?" "Absolutely," Amelia replied, "and we'll make it our own. We'll add decorations that remind us of special moments." As the children excitedly worked on decorating the tree, Amelia took a moment to reflect on their journey. Despite the hardships, the love and resilience within their family had created a new chapter filled with hope. The weeks leading up to the holiday were filled with activity. The family crafted homemade ornaments, each one symbolizing a cherished memory or a new beginning. Emily made a special ornament with her name and a picture of Michelle, while Michael and Sarah created whimsical decorations with their favorite colors and patterns. David was instrumental in bringing the new holiday to life. He spent hours researching traditions from different cultures, blending them into something uniquely their own. Amelia marveled at his dedication, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for his unwavering support. On the eve of their new holiday, the house was filled with warmth and cheer. The tree sparkled with the light of their handmade decorations, and the aroma of festive treats wafted through the air. Emily's face was a picture of joy as she helped Amelia prepare a special meal for their celebration. As night fell and the family gathered around the table, Amelia took a deep breath, feeling a mix of pride and emotion. She looked around at the faces of her loved ones, each one a testament to the strength and love they had cultivated together. "Tonight, we celebrate our family and the love that binds us," Amelia said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings, cherished memories, and the warmth of our hearts." The clink of glasses and the heartfelt cheers that followed filled the room with a sense of unity and happiness. They shared stories, laughter, and a few tears as they reminisced about the past year and looked forward to the future. As the evening wound down, Emily approached Amelia with a shy smile. "Mommy, can we light a candle for Aunt Michelle?" "Of course, sweetheart," Amelia replied, her heart swelling with emotion. They gathered around the candle, its soft glow casting a warm light over their faces. Amelia held Emily close as they shared a moment of quiet reflection, their hearts intertwined in a bond of love and remembrance. Chapter 6: Forging Ahead. With the new year came fresh challenges and opportunities. Amelia and David continued to navigate their roles as partners and parents, their relationship growing stronger with each passing day. Emily, Michael, and Sarah thrived in their new routines, their days filled with school, activities, and the comforting presence of their family. Amelia had taken on a part-time job at a local community center, finding fulfillment in helping others and contributing to their family's financial stability. David's work continued to keep him busy, but he was always present for the important moments, his support unwavering. One sunny afternoon, as they prepared for a family outing, David approached Amelia with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking about something," he said, taking her hand. "I want to make sure we're all on the same page about our future." Amelia looked at him, her heart filled with anticipation. "What do you have in mind?" David took a deep breath. "I want us to consider making a more permanent commitment. I've been thinking about proposing to you." Amelia's eyes widened in surprise and joy. "David, that's wonderful, but we should talk about it more. Make sure it's right for all of us." David nodded. "I agree. It's important that we're all ready for this step. We've built something amazing together, and I want to make sure it's the right time." As they continued their discussion, Amelia felt a deep sense of contentment. Their journey had been filled with challenges, but they had emerged stronger and more united. The prospect of a more formal commitment only added to her sense of hope and excitement for the future. The family outing was a joyous occasion, filled with laughter and exploration. They visited a local park where the children played and explored, their energy and enthusiasm infectious. Amelia and David watched with pride, their hearts full of gratitude for the life they had built together. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Amelia broached the subject of their future with the children. "I've been talking with David about something special," she began, her eyes meeting theirs with a mixture of warmth and anticipation. "We've been thinking about making a bigger commitment to each other and to all of you." The children's faces lit up with excitement. "Does that mean we're going to be a family forever?" Michael asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Amelia nodded, her heart swelling with love. "Yes, it does. We want to make sure that we're all committed to each other and that we continue to grow as a family." Sarah clapped her hands in delight. "That's amazing. I love our family." Emily looked at Amelia with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "What about Aunt Michelle? Will she always be a part of our family too?" Amelia smiled gently. "Aunt Michelle will always be a part of our hearts and our memories. She'll always be with us in the love we share and the traditions we create." As the children embraced the news with enthusiasm, Amelia and David felt a deep sense of satisfaction and hope. They had faced many challenges, but they had come through them with love and resilience.